Welcome to the Dastardly Dingoes podcast, a show that celebrates all things nerdy. You'll get an insider's look into the world of comic books, graphic novels, TV and film, gaming and pop culture, as well as the technologies that drive all of it. Now, are you ready to get nerdy? Welcome to the Dastardly Dingoes podcast, the show about all things nerdy. We discuss nerd news, movies, TV shows, games, comics, and so much more. I'm Brian.
I'm Chad.
I hate you so much. And brace yourselves, folks, because we're about to get nerdy. All right, so it has been a few months, hasn't it, Chad?
Since it has.
Harassed all of these wonderful people.
Yes.
And we are back for season 4 on a new night. Tuesdays now at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is where you will always be able to find us. And if you're searching high and low for a certain fez-wearing fiend, don't worry. We've got someone tucked away in our loins for you.
Ooh, he's in our loins? Wow.
Sorry, that was weird. But he... Clever Title Pending is taking a hiatus. We will now be the new Tuesday night slot on the Rising Tide Broadcast Network. And there you can find all of the amazing shows that the Rising Tide Broadcast Network offers. We've got everything. We've got shows about cigars, shows about drinking, shows about just getting up in the morning and being encouraged to tackle your day, use your creativity to go brighten a dark world. So we have so much to offer. You definitely want to check it out. Tomorrow morning, I think we are the last for tonight. And then tomorrow morning, we'll be back with Nevermind the Furthermore with Brian K. Morris. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to bring in the Fez Man himself, straight from our loins, apparently. The only, the one, the Brian K. Morris.
Hello, everyone. Thank you.
Yes,
I have never received such a gracious invitation as your loinage, but I feel so very special now.
Oh, you should. Our loinage is a special place to be. I don't
it
know.
sounds like I didn't see a dress
there's
text
that.
to it or anything from the motor club. So, but no, I'm really excited that you guys are a part of the network. That you guys bring a whole lot of fun and a whole lot of great information, which great information we inadvertently slip some in on the Rising Tide Broadcast Network every now and then. It's kind of a subtle thing. But subtlety is not what we're here for. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of the network. And I am so excited and look forward to many, many episodes of wonderment and amazingness.
Thank you for having us. I think this is going to be, it's already been a beautiful relationship. We just haven't made it official for, a year. We've been flirting with each other. The networks have now finally collided, and it's going to be a beautiful time. So, Brian, I'm going to give you full screen for those of you who don't know who this man is already. Well, you're about to find out right now. So, Brian, let's see.
You can
Take it away, sir. Tell us who you are and where we can find you.
Okay, I'm Brian K. Morris, independent publisher, independent editor, hybrid author, award-winning playwright, internationally published author of short stories and books. I'm bootlegged in Russia and China right now. I feel important. And the so-called head of the Rising Tide Broadcast Network and former mortician's assistant. I can be found at risingtide.pub, which has just undergone a facelift. And also I have my own channel on the interwebs, especially here on YouTube, which it didn't go down the other day. Now, did it? Anyway, they're going to put me in the deepest part of the Facebook jail that Zuckerberg can find. But anyway, please check out our shows. On all the networks, we have information and all kinds of fun, 7 days a week. It's a varied list of great content creators on the broadcast network, and please like their channels, subscribe, tingle that little bell when you get the thumbs up, and maybe they will clutch you to their loins the way that Brian and Chad have myself. So
it just got so weird. Chad, let's see.
Yes.
Oh, well,
hi there, welcome to Never Mind the Furthermore.
I was going to give you the full screen. I was going to give you I was going to give you the full screen there, Chad, but I don't know how. So
okay, his picture on the upper left-hand corner, you'll see a little square. How you did me is how you do Chad now, if you still got the
energy.
It's
right here. Chad, why don't you tell us who you are, where we can find you, and what you have to offer us all?
I'm kind of the leftovers, I guess, here.
Look, nobody really cares about you, okay? I'm just doing this to look nice. All right.
Thank you. So anyways, my name is Chad Nuss. I'm the creator, author, and artist of the sci-fi comic book series called The Silence. And I am currently almost done with issue number 2, and that'll be out here next month. And then on to issue number 3. I'm also a freelance artist, and so I have several projects that I'm working on right now. And you can find me at thesilencearts.com or thesilencecomics.com, although thesilencecomics.com I think I'm going to probably not use as much anymore and just use the Silence Arts, because that has everything, just the comic book and the freelance stuff. So and a co-host of this wonderful show, The Dastardly Dingoes. That's it. That's all you get from me. Are you there? Is anyone there?
See, Brian, this isn't as easy as I make it look.
Oh no, I
every
was doing
Thursday night on Comic Book Spectrum, featuring Brian Rodman, Clyde Hall, and the Eric S. Hawkins. Yeah, see that sexy cup up there? Check out our merch page, and you can have all 4 of us on your chest.
Just for the record, I was letting Chad hang there just because it's fun for me to watch him squirm.
That's fine.
And I am Brian Rodman. I am the author and illustrator of the graphic novel series, horror fantasy graphic novel series, Memoirs of an Angel. Right now, we are live on Kickstarter. Issue 8. Go to this link right here after the show, or right now if you really have to leave. It won't hurt my feelings. Go there. We are about a little less than $500 from being backed. So go there, see what goodies we can give you, and let's get on with the show, gentlemen, shall we? One thing that I really wanted to, since it is the spooky season, as it were, before we jump into the topic of creativity and worldview and world building, I wanted to kind of go around and see what your favorite go-to spooky things are every Halloween season, be it movies, books, whatever. And let's see, Brian, if you would like to go first.
I'd be happy to. Thank you. What my darling wife Cookie and I like to do every year is we like to drive around various neighborhoods, and don't worry, we're not going to get creepy with it. We like to drive around different neighborhoods and look at the Halloween decorations, because you go to the chain big box hardware stores right now, and you see all these massive blow up things that you put on your lawn. They wave there, and you're ghosts and Frankensteins and scary things. And I just love driving down the neighborhood and all the different lights and seeing the creativity that a lot of people employ to decorate their homes. And you hear about a war on Halloween so very often in the news. And I think it's time we kept Halloween in our hearts all year round.
Indeed. The blackest of hearts. Chad, what about you? Do you have happiness ever? Chad's either frozen or dead. We're not entirely sure. Yeah.
I will answer for Chad.
Yeah.
My favorite things are most of them are illegal in most states.
Actually, here I got you. There we go. Talk for Chad, won't you, Brian?
Hi there. I'm Chad Nuss. Look at my beautiful wall. I like I would do scary things, but those are creepy and they scare me, and that's why I wear black all the time, so
Oh,
nobody
he
can see
left.
my terror.
Oh well, I think it's just me and you now, buddy.
Well, there we go. Battle of the Bryans. Let's do
yeah.
this thing.
Hopefully, Chad jumps back in here soon. If
Yeah,
he is not
Chad, come
dead, and if
back.
he is, then the peasants will rejoice. But no, actually, I've blabbed a whole lot about this on social media lately. I read and or listen to Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula, every single year. And this year I chose to do a really cool audio, kind of like it's a mix between a like a radio drama and an audiobook, because it's not quite either or. Because with Dracula it's easy to do because there's so many different journal entries and and all that. But it is by far my favorite novel of all time. It just captures my imagination and really gets me into the spooky mood. So that's my annual Halloween thing. Robin and I usually try to go do something, be it like a pumpkin glow that we have in one of our parks, or there's actually a really cool thing here in Louisville called the Danger Run. And it is it is a large citywide scavenger hunt that if you want to, it can lead to multiple different haunted houses, and you get a little clue book at the beginning, and you follow the clue book, and it takes you all around the city, all the back creepy roads and stuff.
Right.
So, all right, Chad's back. I guess we'll let him in. What did you do?
I don't know.
Go?
I got booted. I don't know what happened.
Oh gosh, I can't
Sorry.
take you anywhere.
It's not like I've never done that on our show, Brian.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
thank you.
Well, let's see. We've got a ton of comments. Let's try to get to some of them. So Donna Carleen, hey, you got here first. Yay. Wonderful to see you. And my lovely wife, Robin. Hello. It has been a while. It's been too long, but we're back. We are back. Hello again. And let's see. Hello, sir. Ted Davies Artistry saying hello, gentlemen. How are you?
Hello.
And there we go. A fez in the loins can't be comfortable.
Oh, it is when it's Brian's.
I was going to say, I actually found it quite pleasant, but you know.
Yeah. And I say don't judge until you've tried it.
Very warm.
Indeed.
We don't do fez shaming around here.
Yeah.
That's right.
And there he is, Brian K. Morris. Don't threaten us like that. Excellent pointing. Don't compliment
Thank
him,
you.
Please.
Thank you, Robin.
Gosh, his ego is already so big. Jeez. Welcome to the Rising Tide, dingoes. It's great to be here, Ted.
That's right.
It's wonderful.
I feel like I
need
to live here. I got my Sprite. How about that?
There you go. Yeah, your Sprite, you jerk.
Feel the love.
My two favorite Brians. How's it going, everyone? Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Rick.
And Cindy Kep is in the house. Howdy. Y'all are early. Actually, so Clever Title Pending normally is at 8 p.m. on Tuesdays, but the Dingoes are going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I saw that, Chad. We are on the same screen. You unintelligent person. What?
my Barbie ways. Hello.
Yeah. All right. And let's see. Cindy lets out a woot. And there you go. Thank you, Robin. That is the Bitly link as well for anyone who wants to check out Memoirs of an Angel. And oh gosh, poor Chad. How do you deal with that guy? You know what? What do you mean, poor Chad? It should be poor Brian and poor Brian.
Definitely,
we have to
Chad.
Put up with him. And poor Jeremy. Actually, everybody, Jeremy is normally here. Jeremy is not here this week. He's having some health issues, not COVID related, thank God. But he is feeling under the weather. He was really bummed that he couldn't be here tonight, but he should be back with us next week. Let's see.
Yes.
And yes, hey Nathan, how you doing, man?
Good to see you.
And Donna Carleen is saying thank you. Let's see. Meaning, how does Chad deal with you, Brian? Oh, gross.
That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Don't give him. Don't give him.
Exactly.
Any
That's what I'm saying.
Oh no.
He just constantly gets on my nerves.
I can remove you from this at any time.
Right now, all I hear is blah 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 blah.
All I hear is blah blah blah. I'm a dirty tramp. All right.
All I hear is the sound of my own voice, but that's just
all right. So tonight's topic sometimes on the show, if you're familiar with it, we will get a creator on and we'll interview the creator. But Brian's been on here so much, and you all know who he is already, that we're actually going to have a topical show this time to kick off the season. And this week's topic is creativity and worldview in world building. And what I mean by that is just essentially, how do the two or the three rather interact with each other? How does your creativity influence your worldview? How does your worldview influence, as a creator, your world building? So to break it down, so the first question I really want to jump into, and Brian, since you are a guest, if you would like to go first in your response to this, in the past 2 years, how important has creativity been in your own personal life? Now, be that your own creations or the creations of others, and why?
Well, that's an excellent question. And I think it's something that all of us in the creative fields could stand to examine in their own lives, because that thing that happened last year, it forced me to take a look at how I conducted my creativity. And, I had, since I see that my sales and promotion is intricately tied to my creative aspect, the creative aspects of my life, suddenly I've got no shows. And for me, it's kind of like performance art, that I go down there and I have fun and hope to God the people I'm talking to have fun. But I had to shift my focus in a lot of ways for how I presented my creativity to the public. I got more into broadcasting, because I think at the heart of what we do is communication, whether it is coming up with a story out of our heads and presenting it to somebody else, or promoting others, or just generally keeping in touch with people. And so that's when I kind of ramped up my broadcasting to a large extent, to where it now is almost as important a component of my creative life as, say, writing or editing or publishing. And it's one of those things where I talked to a number of people a year and a half ago, and they're like, "Oh, I can't do anything. We can't get out. We can't go to the store. We can't go to our jobs." And there were a number of people that said, just because we can't live our lives the way we did, in December 2019, doesn't mean that we stop what we're doing. It doesn't mean that we wait for everything to pass. Instead, we hunker down and we form our alliances. You know how big I am on networking.
Oh gosh, yeah.
The tribe helped me get through a lot of stuff, whether they knew it or not. But you hear about those open with their feelings people. I'm not one of them some days.
Well, I gotta, sorry to interrupt.
No.
I just want to, kind of piggyback off of what you said. I mean, you talk about your networks or your broadcasts and what you've, how you've leaned into your tribe. I mean, it's been no secret that I have, I feel like the Rising Tide community, especially Nevermind the Furthermore and the Nevermorians, really kind of saved my sanity. What little that there actually is.
We can only do so much, We're not professionals.
Yeah. Can't win them all. But really, I completely agree. It absolutely saved me. So go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt it.
No, that's pretty much most of it. It's just one of those things where we're all all creators are presented challenges in their lives. Sometimes it's political, geopolitical, we'll call it now. Like if a war breaks out somewhere, or a global crisis, or if it's just something personal, like falling in love or losing a loved one. That all of these roadblocks to getting your work to getting your work out there exist, and it's what we do in response to them that I think really defines us as creators. And that's one of the reasons I am so in love with the independent community, pulp, comics,
Yeah.
whatever, because when everybody's going, even the big companies are saying, put your pencils down, step away from the typewriter. We all said, hold my beer and watch this. So I am just so incredibly proud and protective of our wee little community here. And one of my greatest wishes is that everybody find their tribe.
Yeah.
So,
It's
Hey,
a great place to be. And you say wee little, it's growing. It's there's been from this, I would say from this point to last year to now, there's been quite a few people that have jumped on board.
There really has. And I'm grateful to say, and I'm not trying to turn myself into any sort of leader of a cult of personality or anything. I think it's just finding people who are looking for other people who are rowing in the same direction.
Yeah.
And, which you don't always find, and that's one of the things I love about you guys on the Dastardly Dingoes. You're fighting like ancient married couples, to the contrary. Of course, then again, if you watch Comic Book Spectrum and me and Eric Hawkins,
it's funny. You said something, I think last week on either Comic Book Spectrum or never mind the Furthermore, because over the last week, folks, we've welcomed Brian into the folderol of the Facebook Messenger between me and Chad and Jeremy, and he can attest. It is we all kind of just bicker and roast each other pretty much all the time, 24/7.
It's vicious, people. Oh my god!
It's
but
love.
all done in love. Yes,
absolutely. Except for Chad, I hate him. But
I'll make it up to you, Chad. I promise.
Thank you. Hey,
there you go.
You were in my loins already, so I'm good. I'm good to go.
Oh, Chad, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions for Brian. It's my turn for the interrogation. My two questions I have for you, Brian. The first one is, especially you referenced the last couple of years, especially with everything shutting down, and how for a lot of creative people, I think it can be a challenge in the sense that they could feel a bit of being defeated or whatever. But I agree with you that it was such an opportunity, especially if you're like me. If you're introverted, like this was the greatest season of all time because you got to kind of be on your own, do your own thing. But my question for you is like, do you ever go through seasons where it's a challenge for you to create, like it's a challenge for you to actually sit down and write, or like you just have times where you just don't feel like doing it? And if you do, like, how do you get through that? Like, what do you personally do to work through those seasons of your creative life?
That's a great question. And I recognize that my answer is not going to be for everyone because, I have my days where I call it, it's not depression, just a momentary lapse of awesomeness. And, which means I'm depressed, but no, and it can be something, like we probably all had people close to us who have gotten ill recently, who are in our prayer lists are not exactly shrinking these days. But I have, since I started doing this full time in 2012, I have treated what I do as the best job I have ever had in my life. But how many of us go to a 9-to-5 and love every moment of it? When I was working at Office Depot back in the 90s, I was in the print section. I love putting together publications for people, helping them solve their creativity problems, getting them, their newsletters done and everything. And then at the end of the shift, I had to clean out the ladies' toilets. So it's not all La Vida Loca, but I just force myself to do it. And I know it's slow. But if I get into the right mindset, it's a distraction, and I pick up speed. Or I just tell myself that even if I am producing utter tripe right now, I can edit it, and maybe it will become something better than what I'm imagining it to be right now. So do you just work through it, basically?
Do you use a formal schedule in the sense like every day you think, okay, from 10 to 2, I'm going to write. And then from 1 to 3, I'm going to edit. And then in the evening, I'm going to work on a podcast or whatever. Like, do you have that kind of schedule, or do you just kind of take each day as it comes? And
I have a schedule that I make every day at 9 a.m., which I then abandon by 9:02. Because it's one of those things. I'm sure you guys have run into it too, where okay, I'm going to get this done in the next hour, and then you open your Facebook comments and all the DMs there, all of whom are melting down, and only you can save them.
I feel like anymore it's the verse is a man chooses his steps, but the Lord guides his path. Well, it's more anymore now. I feel like it's more like a man chooses his steps and Facebook decides his path. Which honestly, like I had to say, sidebar. Yesterday when Facebook went, I loved it. I tell you, and I just launched a Kickstarter, which business wise, it was not smart of me to say this, but I texted Robin and I was like, I kind of hope this just stays down for a couple days.
Yeah.
Because I have Twitter and stuff. I could just dump my Kickstarter stuff there and just be like, wonderful.
Yeah.
It was like a weight was lifted for a little bit. And that's not good.
No, it's not. And I know so many people that we talk, and I say we, because I'm firmly in this camp, we have a hate relationship with Facebook. That if there were someplace else that we could go that was every bit as viable without being the flaming dumpster fire that that Facebook often tends to be, especially in these politicized times.
Ugh.
That I was, in fact, I was going through some comments just before I came on here, and I'm like, I thought you'd graduated from third grade. You can't tell from your reasoning skills here.
Look, Brian, I try my best. Okay,
I know you made it to at least fifth grade, man. I'm proud of you. I really have never.
It's a lie. You didn't make it to fifth grade.
Halfway through fourth grade.
It was kind of a Kobayashi Maru kind of thing. He just rigged the game to work at his advantage.
Exactly. I just Captain Kirk that mother.
Exactly. He hates to lose. So
well, while we're on the topic really quick, would how do you balance like your creative energy with kind of like how social media just tends to like to take over our minds and souls these days?
My initial answer is usually poorly, because I will get, there are some subjects I am very passionate about, and you'll see that in, many of my my morning broadcasts in particular. And I'm not going to do it. I swear to God, cut my microphone off if I go into a tirade. But there are just some issues I feel very, very strongly about. And I know that most of my audience doesn't want to hear me ranting again. So it's basically I have to withdraw from social media to a large degree. And every now and then, and here's a secret, I go through my friends list, and we all probably know maybe 10 to 15% of the people on there, and maybe have had real contact with them, like in person, to maybe 20 to 25%, and the rest of them are like, "Huh, here was Word of Feds. I like that. I'll just click that little like button." And I, in all honesty, I do not accept a lot of friend requests. Well, first of all, I get a lot of those like, "Hey, have you seen my WhatsApp? A single girl like me deserves to have your eyeballs all over her. So here's my WhatsApp account." And
that's actually Chad, though. So
I was just going to say, I've been wanting you to accept my account. What's going on here?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to get on that right now. Then let's see.
Chad's OnlyFans link will be in the comments, by the way. So there you go.
Yeah, that's actually when you go to the silencearts.com. It's actually my whatever you call that thing.
Linktree?
My only app. Call it. Oh, I got cut again. Am I here?
Yeah, well, kind of. Your voice is here. You're a disembodied voice. There we go. You're back.
Waving my hand.
Jeez, cool. Get better internet. You.
God, I thought mine sucked.
Man.
Yes.
I feel so much better about my
normally
cable
mine's
provider now.
Normally mine's pretty good. I don't know what it's doing today. So
it's my fault. Everything's my fault.
No,
so,
don't take that blame. Don't take the blame
it's
away from
Rodman's
Chad.
fault.
It's always Chad's fault. All
That's
this
right.
shit.
I'm denying his accomplishments, right?
Oh, I see. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be a positive affirmation. Chad,
Thank you.
you keep it up, buddy. You keep
Thanks,
it up.
buddy.
Make the
You're
internet
the
Keep
best.
sailing just
You're
as
the
good.
best.
Oh man, Chad, did you have anything else you wanted to say before?
Sure. Yeah. Like about social media in particular, like I'm the same way that you guys said. Like I have a real love-hate relationship with it. And Brian Rodman and I were talking about it before the show and just talking about the last, being off yesterday. And like I go through seasons where like I'll post a ton, like I'll post like multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And then I'll go through seasons where I just don't have the motivation to. I'm kind of in a I don't care season right now. So like I haven't posted in a while. And like when I just found out recently that it was down yesterday, I didn't even know because I wasn't even on it. And
I was.
yeah. And so it's like one of those things, like on one side, I feel like it's unnecessary. I don't really need it. I see more and more artists in particular posting on YouTube, which is ironic because it's a social media, but they just keep talking about like, you don't really need Facebook and Instagram anymore. I see so many posts about how Instagram is dying off, and I've kind of experienced that myself. Like I don't see a whole lot of growth on Instagram. I get a lot of random requests through Facebook, and I just asked myself the question, like, how beneficial has it been? Have I really gotten any business through it? And I really can't say I have gotten a lot. I've gotten a few things, but not a whole lot. Mostly conventions are a huge thing for me because then you get to actually meet people one-on-one.
Yeah.
They get to see your product in their hand, that kind of thing. But on the other hand, the reality is that people do see your stuff through Facebook, and it can be a random person and you never know. You could just hit the lottery and it could be that one person that makes a connection for you or whatever. So like, I think it's definitely necessary for a creative to be involved with it. Just, you have to be careful because you can quickly go down that rabbit hole of judging or justifying your work based on likes and interaction, which is not the case because, as we all know, as I famously or infamously complained about, you can draw a stick figure and get 1 million views, and then the rest of us over here drawing, putting all their effort into this thing and trying to create amazing work.
I mean, look at that wall behind him. Look at how humble his wall is.
That's right.
Just
my wall,
just
my wall of
beautiful.
humility. Yes.
No,
So,
I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's all about just like, it's almost like a
see?
formula.
Now this video is
there
going to
you
go
go.
viral.
Brian K. Morris, the
Viral.
Rising Tide Rising Tide page on Facebook. We're over 62% of the way to monetization, and if we get 1,100 subscribers before the end of Halloween,
There it is.
we'll do a 12-hour. Never mind the furthermore. No, I don't know what's wrong with me.
You got it.
Hashtag always promote.
One thing I want to say real quick is I had heard, and this is not my idea. I heard this from Gary Vee, or Vaynerchuk. But the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. I wish they would come out with a version of Facebook where everyone could only post once a day. Then that way everyone can see your posts, and you're not like to this. I've got to post like multiple times a day and try and get as much likes out there. Because the problem is, and the reality about Facebook and social media is like, if you've got 1,000 people, they're not going to see your posts. Like it's impossible to see everyone's posts. So they have to regulate it somehow, which is why they changed the algorithm. And it's driven by money. So of course they're going to limit certain people's exposure because they want them to pay the money for the ads. I mean, it's basic. So like, I understand the frustration, but at the same time, I understand why they do it. But at the end of the day, they're doing it because they're making money. So like I would say to all the artists that complain or get frustrated, if you're mad about it, then stop using it. Like it's that simple because they're making money off of you. And as well, I've also heard the argument that I've heard the argument the other way, the devil's advocate argument of not posting because basically they're using their content to promote their own thing. So you're giving them free advertising. So every time you put on a post that people like, they're making money off of you that you're not making money off of. So, if you want to go down that route, you can. I don't really care about all that stuff. I'm very thankful for whoever sees my stuff and I appreciate that, whatever. But I feel the frustration sometimes, but on the other end, I also feel the blessing that it is to be able to connect with people all around the world, that you wouldn't connect with otherwise, So
Well,
Yeah.
and you raise a good point, and something Brian and I have talked about numerous times in the last few months. In particular, that like before 2020, a lot of the so-called pundits were saying, "Oh no, online friendships are not real. They're all ones and zeros."
Oh, yeah.
And yet, um, Brian and I have talked about how close we have become, and we didn't meet each other till about 3 or 4 months ago in person. And
Yeah.
same with you, Chad. I met all the
Yeah.
Dingoes at
Yeah.
Imaginarium, and it was just like seeing
Yeah.
a friend.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh,
Yeah.
I should know him. I should know him now.
Yeah.
So
It wasn't just some
it's become
ambiguous
real.
face. Yeah.
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 Or
Yeah.
as I used to tell people, I'd get people come up to me at shows and go, "Hey, I'm so and so. Remember me?" And I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
On my phone, you're this
Yeah.
little blotch of
Right,
color and ones and zeros.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
And
wear
just
these things
to-
just to accent my face.
The bearer of wisdom has joined us, and he has said he has bestowed upon us very wise words.
Yes.
Boogers. Chad eats boogers. Thank you, Jeremy. Stay tuned on the show, and Jeremy will be joining us next week.
So awesome.
Yes, you, Chad.
was
No, yeah, that was great.
No, I think
Um,
I absolutely agree with what Brian K. Morris said, because there have been people that I've met online, or even just through like commenting, like if you're both on a show and you comment it, and then all of a sudden you become friends through Facebook, and then you comment on each other's stuff, and like there's a guy named Roy, I can't pronounce his last name, but he lives in the Philippines, like Mercado or something like that. But
Oh yeah, Roy Mercado.
yeah.
So we met through Facebook, and like we'll comment on each other's stuff or comment on shows and things like that. But I've never met him. I think I've seen a picture of him, but I've seen his artwork and that kind of thing. So it's things like that is really the blessing of it. So for me, it just comes back to like, which we'll talk about, and you could use this as a segue. You're welcome. It comes back to your like your viewpoint. It comes back to like your heart and who you are, whether you're going to see it as a positive thing or a negative thing. I'm typically pretty pessimistic and melancholy. It's like my personality, so I have to fight that. So I have to purposely like look at what is the positive here, like what is the blessing of social media, because my default is just to say screw it, use it and whatever. But the reality is like there are a lot of blessings in there that you just have to be thankful for no matter what. So
Totally agree.
I would, I like Brian said, I was one of those people that was like, oh, online friendships, if you meet online and you just interact online, that's not real. It totally is. I will be the first to say that I was wrong. Because the first time, Brian, the first time you and I met in person, we embraced like a freaking love movie. A love movie? A romance.
Romance,
I was very jealous.
One of them there love movies.
It's like Brian's beard, and his hair like wafting like a brick commercial.
That's even better.
I actually witnessed this interaction, and I have to say my loins were very warm.
Mission accomplished.
But see, all of that came from an online, social media interaction. So it seems like there is, like I say, I have a love-hate relationship and with social media, and I really do, because we've explored all the really negative things about it, but there are some really positive things about it too. Like honestly, I would have never discovered this wonderful community of Rising Tide if it weren't for social media. I wouldn't, we wouldn't be here right now talking if it weren't for social media. And I mean, I gotta say, most of my interactions that built my fan base for me was directly through Facebook, a little bit through Instagram, but it's primarily been through Facebook. And so with all the garbage, with all the grossness that's on social media, all the political arguing and all the just seemingly endless debates and arguments about things that no one's ever going to change their mind about on social media, you do have this glimmer of hope that is spearheaded by creativity. I think I have found the majority of my colleague relationships that have turned into friendships in the indie comic book industry through Facebook. and I'm very thankful for it. And yes, Comic Cons are huge, a huge part of building that fan base, a huge part of networking as well, getting to know people, getting to know new friends. But right now, because I'm high risk, I don't go to Comic Cons.
Right.
And there's a lot of people in the same boat as me. And so because of that, I'm really glad that we have these good moments on social media. And really what I've tried to do over the summer, my Facebook, if some of you remember, my Facebook was hacked. And I had to completely start a new one because Facebook's customer service is non-existent. And I just had to start a new profile. And honestly, it's been a blessing in disguise. I was able to get rid of people that I didn't even know, interactions there. I was really able to pick and choose and really cultivate an environment on social media that was mostly about creativity. And it gave me that chance to do so. And honestly, it's been really nice. Because most of what I scroll through are my friends and their artwork and talking about nerd stuff, and I love it. But I, kind of, it does seem like creativity is a little bit of a light in the darkness, which is a theme of this episode. So in that spirit, well, before we move on to the next question, let's jump in here. Let's see. December 2019, I was putting the finishing touches on my story, The Marble, which became my first published work. Nice.
Yes.
You can get that in the Nightmare Collective. And then Cindy Kep says creativity has been critical to survival, but I didn't really have a lot more time for it. My day job continued in remote mode, which was great for financial situation. And I have found myself in the same boat as Cindy. I still have a day job that I go to. I'm able to actually go there now and work there, and then it pretty much supplies the financial needs and health benefits that allow me to create. Right. But creativity is crucial to survival. We've seen on social media over the last 2 years, especially. I think we've seen some of the worst out of people, but we've seen some of the best as well. And I think a lot of that has come out of creative works in the arts. And you've got so many people expressing their trauma that they have experienced through this pandemic, and they've created beautiful art that really moves people, and I'm very thankful for that. But and we got to say hi to Carl. Hi, Carl.
Hi, Carl.
Hi, Carl.
Let's see. What's this? I need to toss out half my friends. Yeah, that was honestly. I will say this before we move on. That was super helpful, and I didn't even know that I needed to do it because in my head I was like, I have 4,500 followers on Facebook. I never interacted with most of them. Like, why? Like, why do we feel the need to do that, right? Like, we feel the need to just grow and collect names on a list, and that makes us feel important. And in reality, it doesn't do anything. They're just sitting there, and it's just, you never interact with them. And why are you there? But kind of jumping back to our questions, Chad, we'll start with you this time. How does creativity shape our worldview, like how we see the world in our belief system? How does creativity shape that, and how does that shape our creativity, vice versa?
Yeah, I think we talked about a little bit about this before, but I think it's the other way around personally. I mean, I think your worldview influences your creativity. I understand what you're saying with the question as far as like creativity can influence everything from your practical side to business side to whatever. Like, it can influence how you see things, it can influence how you produce things and that kind of thing. But I think there is a worldview behind that that's going to influence what you actually create. So like, someone like Damien Hirst is going to create something different than Van Gogh because they have different worldviews, or someone like Richard Dawkins is going to write something completely different than I can't think of someone else. someone on the other side right now of a Francis Schaeffer or something like that. Like you're gonna have, they're gonna have the same like creative output, but they're gonna produce different actual products or creations or whatever you want to say. And so for me, I think worldview is fundamental. And I think it's one of those things that's common ground to everyone. Everyone has a worldview. Everyone has a philosophy and perspective. And it when you understand that, for me, that takes away all of the edge. In other words, if there's someone I disagree with on their worldview, it's okay. I don't have to like convince them or argue with them. I just know that they're coming from a different place. And so my job is to understand where they're coming from. And then I can engage them and say, okay, well, that's your perspective, but have you considered this? It just takes away all of the bipartisan garbage that we've seen so much lately, not on all the issues, not just political, but also the medical, obviously with the COVID and all that kind of stuff. You have all that because people are not understanding that all of that's driven by worldview. You know, that the person that has a particular political view or a particular view on COVID or vaccines or whatever, that's being driven by a worldview that's already in place. So I'm not going to say it's pointless, but it really doesn't help arguing the details of the point. It's more about getting back to where are you coming from? Why do you believe the thing you do? So anyways, to get back to your question, for me, worldview shapes everything when it comes to my creative life. Everything from this to the way that I draw, the products the end product that I'm trying to get to, it's all driven by my worldview. And even really when I think about it, and for me, a big issue that I've thought about lately is like enduring legacy. Like after I'm dead and gone, like not to be like super morbid, but I think about death a lot. Like I think about my own death a lot because number one, it's inevitable. Number two, I just think like, okay, so what's the point of what I'm doing? Like if I'm drawing all these books and telling these stories, how is that going to live on beyond me, and why? What does that mean? Well, that influences how you create. And for example, if you believe that your story is not just intended for this generation, but for your grandkids, then that takes the edge off of I've got to have so many followers on Facebook, because I know at the end of the day, my story, so if people don't like it now, that's fine. Someone down the road is going to eventually find it, and it lets me relax now. So that's just like a practical thing that I've thought through when it comes to worldview. Now, I'm not perfect at that. There are days where I sit there and think, oh man, I'm a failure. I hate this. No one knows me, blah, blah, blah. And then there are other days where I'm a little more healthy in my thinking process. And I'm like, no, I'm doing this because I've been given this gift to create, and I want to shepherd that well. I want to use it, steward it well, and use it to serve other people. So
the quote that we will pull from this episode is, I'm a failure at everything I do.
Yes.
Welcome to the sequel to Imposter Syndrome.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly.
In many ways, actually, the last time we had you on the show, Brian, it was Imposter Syndrome.
Yeah.
So in many ways, this is kind of the sequel to that. The only reason that I phrased the question the way that I did about putting creativity that influences your worldview is mostly because you think back to like how when you're forming a worldview, okay, when you're wrestling through what you believe and why you believe it, I think a lot of creativity influences us in that direction. I mean, think about our culture, like follow your heart was what I heard over and over and over and over and over again in every animated movie growing up. And you know, we've discovered that, you know, other worldviews will actually say the opposite. You know, and as I've gotten older, I found this to be true, that actually following your heart isn't always the best thing to do. But that creative drive, which was shaped by a different worldview. So in that point, you know, I absolutely agree with you. So worldview absolutely shapes creativity, but then creativity then turns around and shapes worldview in your own life and in other people's lives. And that's, I think, for me, the best way, you know, being a theology student and, you know, going to seminary and doing vocational ministry, I think the best possible way to get a belief through to someone and actually have it stick and change their perspective and change their life is through a story. and how creative the more creative you are in telling your story, and the different ways that you show your creativity will interact with different people, and in then doing that, it will shape their worldview. And I know from experience that's exactly what my worldview has been shaped by creativity since I was a kid, and especially in our culture, we can all say the same thing. I mean, how many of us look back, to movies that we love and to books that we've read? I mean, I just said I read Dracula every Halloween, and we don't even know it a lot of times, but subconsciously we're getting a lot of information that's shaping our view, and and it's all through creativity, which is why I always say everybody has their own perspective, their own worldview, and in that, if you want to create a comic, if you want to go write a book, do it, and don't hold back, because that's how I think we can best understand each other, is sharing stories, sharing fiction that has a worldview behind it. It can help shape our perspective, and it can help us understand other people as well.
Well, that's excellent points from both of you. I've said for decades that, yes, I'm that old, that comic books serve, in particular, or all TV, radio, any sort of creative medium, reflects the times that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
And the media and the message change constantly. So, that's why I agree with you. I always tell people, create fearlessly. Don't chase the trend. Become the trend.
Ooh, look, that's a bumper sticker right there.
I know.
I like that. That's nice. You said it much better than I did.
I've had years of practice. But no, I talk to so many people who are like, well, I'm going to do, I'm not going to say dino porn. I've got that on my system. But no, I'm going to use, I'm going to write shapeshifter romance. Okay. Because that's popular right now. But as we've learned, especially if you pay attention to the medium, that things change so quickly. So by the time you've got it done and halfway palatable to a mass audience, people have moved on to something else. So I always tell people, create the thing that you want to read or listen to, if it's music, or the kind of podcast you wish somebody was making, but you aren't. And then go make them. And it's a matter of also finding your audience. And yes, you're going to get people that disagree with your worldview. But like on my shows, we say constantly that we can agree to disagree. I mean, depending on how you look at it, either I am trying to find common ground with somebody with whom I may not have it, but I want to understand them, or if I'm having a cynical day, then I am not the jackass whisperer. So it's something I think as creatives we all have to wrestle with. As far as portraying our worldview, and something I've always been sensitive about this, the difference between representing one's worldview and propaganda. There is a very thin line between the two. And if nothing else, as long as it's entertaining and gets people to think and gets people to talk about what's going on, if there is an issue or some deeper idea that needs to be discussed, like classic X-Men graphic novel, God Loves, Man Kills.
Ooh, my goodness. Yes.
Or the Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams Green Lantern series, where a different topical issue was tackled every issue. And it's kind of funny to see how even after 50 years, half a century,
still relevant.
Yeah, if
absolutely.
Not more so.
For sure.
I mean, we had so good.
And in Memoirs of an Angel, #always promote, which is available on issue 8 is available on Kickstarter right now, folks.
Everyone should own some.
Chad.
Come on,
Chad. Oh, put that away. No, actually, in all
That's one I
seriousness,
need.
Memoirs of an Angel and The Silence.
So
I was gonna say this anyway, so that actually works. Both me and Chad are both Christians, and both of our works pull from that worldview. Now, the reason that it's fiction, worldview told through fiction instead of just straight propaganda,
Right.
is because it's personalized, and it in many ways, especially in just speaking for memoirs, in many ways it takes a step back and it views this particular worldview that my faith is steeped in from different people's perspectives.
That's good.
So it's not just one character's perspective about one worldview. The best thing, in my opinion, the best writers out there will have a worldview of their own that they are, no matter, you can't help but have that in everything you write because that's your worldview, that's a part of you. But the best writers out there will research and put in other perspectives from other characters that don't always agree with the worldview, and if you represent those characters and those perspectives well, it broadens someone's thoughts about the worldview that you are either coming from or trying to portray.
Right.
And so I think that's where you can really start, first of all, getting a very interesting story that's going to really engage someone, but it's also going to really get people thinking. And I think that's the importance of creativity and worldview is, we need stories like that. We need stories that have something to say, but can also be, take a step back and kind of look at it from different angles as well and show that well.
Yeah. I'll tell you kind of an example of this that I think works here is that I personally find Christopher Hitchens much more engaging than Richard Dawkins. And the reason why is because Richard Dawkins is so condescending towards Christians, condescending, it's ridiculous.
Right.
Whereas Christopher Hitchens went on a tour with Doug Wilson, who's a pastor, and they sat down, and even though they definitely disagree, and Christopher Hitchens doesn't pull any punches and does say a few things that some people get offended with, it's still the fact that they could be friends and interact. And so that to me is the difference between a Richard Dawkins is more like, that's propaganda. Yeah, I know he's an atheist, but he's very much I'm not just an atheist. I'm an anti anything else. It has to be this way, and everyone else is an idiot. Whereas the engagement between Doug Wilson and Christopher Hitchens was more okay, I think you're wrong, and this is why, and we can interact as friends, and I think Brian Morris, I think that was a great point that you made about the difference, the very fine line between holding a worldview and propaganda, because the person that has a propaganda, in my opinion, honestly, I don't think at the end of the day, at the very deepest part of their soul, doesn't believe their worldview. And the propaganda is them pushing it to force other people to believe because they don't have the confidence in it. Someone is confident when they don't have to tell you how they are. They just embrace it, and they have the humility to really understand who they are. They don't have to argue about it. They just are who they are. And those kind of people there's something very attractive and very compelling about them because they're not there trying to push their view on you. And it's weird. It does this reverse effect where you want to learn about them. Who are they? What did they believe? Why do they?
Yeah.
That's why, not to make this a Christian thing, but that was what was about Jesus. It wasn't a propaganda thing. He drew people to him. They wanted to know who he was because of his humility. And I think that's the same thing you see in human examples throughout history, that there are people that are just naturally there's a something charismatic about them because they have the confidence in their worldview rather than trying to argue everyone's wrong.
And I think another thing is to add to your point, because I think that was definitely well said. It's one of the few compliments I'll ever give you, but
savor it, Chad. Savor
exactly. No, it was better.
I will. Thank you. Hashtag I'm a failure in everything I do.
but honestly, that's why I say Penn Jillette is my favorite atheist.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
is so
yeah.
kind to other people's perspectives,
Yeah.
but he
Yeah.
does not pull any punches with what he says.
Mhm.
You know, like
Agreed.
he absolutely respects Christians who try to convince him otherwise, and people, not just Christians, anybody who tries to, you know, proselytize their beliefs to him to prove that there is a God or many gods or whatever they believe, because in his mind, if you really believe something, first of all, you need to know why you believe it, and second of all, you need to be passionate about it. Don't be, you know, don't just say, oh yeah, I'm this, and don't live the, you know, don't live the life like that. Like, actually back it up and really think through these things. And I think the best way to do that for me is through story and through creativity and through conversation. And speaking of which, you know, we are all creators here. And so when you are collaborating with others in various ways, you know, how does a combination of worldviews interact creatively together in your own experience?
Well, for myself, um, generally when I go into collaborations, I know the person I'm dealing with.
Hmm.
For instance, Eric Hawkins and I have known each other for years and years and years. I've aged him unnaturally from having known me, but
You've given him a lot of city miles, I will say
I
that.
have,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have. You know, it ain't the years; it's the mileage. But anyway, but no, uh, we work together because it's not that we agree on everything. To hear us talking in public, you'd think we didn't agree on anything. It's almost like me and Cookie. But anyway, but it's like, but we've worked with each other, and
Mhm.
it's one of those things where, in going into other collaborations, my best ones have been where I've known the two elements for me. One, I've known the person and gone to respect them as as people as well as their talent, and we don't have to agree on nothing, but we talk to each other civilly. We agree to disagree. And the second is that um, I find I pull my ego back,
Mm.
and usually the people I work with do the same. That in a lot of ways we are there to make the other person look good.
Mm.
So when somebody's going through my script, they are going through, yes, the artist is looking to do the script within the parameters of their skill set, or maybe push it a little, because I don't write nothing that anyone's drawn before or should. But anyway, wait till we work here, Brian. But anyway, but no,
Looking
but
forward to it.
I am too. I seriously am. On the drive home from the convention last weekend, I was plotting a story for you that we've discussed. It
Yes.
barely has anything to do with what you've told me. But
Oh,
anyway,
good.
yeah, no, I think you'll like it. I think you'll like it. But no, this thing is, I pull back my ego because I think the work is what should shine. It's not
Yes.
about Brian impressing you with his, this Brian impressing you with his monstrous vocabulary. Most of which can't be said on the show. And it also isn't about the artist saying, well, your word balloon covers up too much of my art, so I'm going to take it out, and people can just figure out what we're saying from what's left. I've had both, and I don't work with those people a second time usually. But no, it's the idea where we have a common cause, and the common cause is the story being told. And that's what I think it should be, and I think that's why when I work with like an Eric Hawkins or a Claudio Adriano, that we know what the other one can do. We work towards each other's strengths, and it's almost like we're both going through the doorway and going, you first, no, you first, no, you first. I insist. So it's just a collaboration and a friendship that just makes everything seem to flow more smoothly.
Yeah.
When you don't see any of the conflict on the page.
Yeah, I think when you get, like, you said it wonderfully. I think when you can set your egos aside and let the story be the main goal,
Yeah.
that is that's how you collaborate well. When your priority is the story and the quality of the story. If I have an idea that doesn't work and you tell me, I'm going to set, and we're both going to come together, look at what the story needs. And if that's true, I'm going to, lay that down and say, okay, cool, let's change it.
Yeah.
And that is how a good story is told in collaboration. And I think, I think there are, especially if you have multiple writers working together, which doesn't always happen, but sometimes it does. I think multiple, writers or even multiple creators bringing their own worldviews, their own perspectives together, it creates something beautiful, really. Especially if they come from different, very different perspectives. If two people can set aside their differences and come together to tell one story, that's a beautiful thing. And in many ways, it shows that creativity can and does bring very different people together, and really creates friendships out of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And mainstream comics have a history of people who get along like this.
Yeah.
And there's something in unfortunately, they may create terrific art together, but it can only sustain itself for so long. Like any of the writer artist teams that you see, like probably in any period of comic book history. And once they start fighting each other, once they start,
they're done.
Going to that urination contest with each other, the work can still be pretty good. I cleaned it up. The work can still be good, but you see the conflict on the page, and then it doesn't last long.
Yeah.
And I understand. It's like how many of us have had a job where there is that one person who's the burr under our saddle, and it's like, I would rather live in a cardboard box under the bridge than spend one more break with him or her. So
yeah.
Or it could be why I'm so unemployable. That could be just me. So
no, but yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm thinking like, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
When they were together, man, they created some amazing things.
Yes.
But when they had their falling out, and even I watched a documentary one time. I think it was Stan Lee that was telling this story is they were at a dinner together and or a party or something, and this was after they had they made nice, but they really hadn't come back together, and Stan was talking to Jack Kirby about doing something else, and this was a little bit before Jack Kirby died, and Jack Kirby's wife said no, absolutely not, and pulled him away because of how intense their falling out was, because she knew that them working together was what triggered the falling out.
Right.
And unfortunately, that can absolutely happen because creativity has an ugly side as well.
Yes.
We can get so attached to a creative idea that when someone else comes in and changes something, or wants to change something, we can get really protective of it. And that can end pretty nasty sometimes, unfortunately.
Yeah, years ago, I used to do mimeographed comic books. And I actually found a national distributor for them, too, which was really kind of cool. But we had a writer who was a pretty competent artist, or a rather competent artist who occasionally wrote. Kind of saw himself as the new Frank Miller, but let's temper our expectations, kids. But anyway, he begged my humble little company. He wanted a script, and I gave him one that was sword and sorcery, and he's like, "Oh yeah, sword and sorcery." But the whole point of it was that it wasn't this hulking barbarian like out of John Buscema Conan, and it wasn't like the girl in the chainmail bikini who could barely fit into it. It was just normal people. And I remember reading the first page of this 8-page story and liking it. Then I turned the page, and then all of a sudden, I didn't see the script anymore. And here's all these boobs and muscles and all this. And I confronted him, and he's like, and I'm like, I asked you to draw this script. What happened? Oh, I got bored, so I put in boobs and muscles. So, but and that led to a number of other stories that are very unflattering about him. But anyway, because I never learned the first time. But no, it's I can see some groups like, Chris Claremont and John Byrne for a while had that creative friction,
Yeah.
but the whole, they put aside their egos for the longest time and could work together until the time came that they couldn't. And, then they were wise enough to realize we better split before things melt down. And I've seen this a number of times in comics, or, you see it in music groups all the time.
Gosh, yes.
Yeah. Let's talk ego, shall we?
Man.
So it makes me feel better about myself. I mean, I can get defensive. But I try to approach the work from almost an academic point of view, where if somebody, like I had a script recently where somebody said, well, I didn't like the way you use captions instead, for your page transitions, and nobody's doing it. Then I listed like half a dozen people and the issues they did it in.
Yeah.
It's like, don't try to out weird me, kid. I've got experience. But I can be defensive, but then also, I've learned to pick my battles too. And of course, then again, the only person I rarely win with, of course, is my main editor, who is, of course, my wife, Cookie. And the nice thing about working with her, though, is she does not give one solitary damn about my feelings.
Nope.
Not a one. You know that, Brian.
I love Cookie.
Everyone does. I'm a loathsome troll, but they all do it for Cookie. I get it. But no, like when I wrote Volcana, she came back with, is chapter 39 supposed to make sense?
Oh, that hurts.
Oh, I know. Oh, I'm still bleeding from the pain.
Sick burn from Cookie.
I know. It's just asking so casually. Is this supposed to make sense?
Oh man, and that's the worst part, is like when it's so genuine. Like it's a genuine question. You're like, oh yeah, it is. Dang
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, like Robin does the same thing, because Robin is Robin is my visual editor.
She's awesome.
She's great, and she'll, I'll bring her in after I'm done with a page, and I'll show her, and sometimes she'll look at me and be like, is it supposed to look like that? That is the worst possible thing I can ever hear, but it's so helpful. And it stings, but I would rather it come from her than anybody else.
Yeah. I have this persona I call Dr. Tough Love, that if you survive his editing, you are destined for glory. Because I don't try to find errors, but if they're going, hey, Brian, over here, I'm going to zero in on them like a laser guided missile with a comparable amount of damage. So
and I've read Zombie World of Oz, so I can attest to that. It very well edited.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And
by this man right here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I owe it all into Counting Zombies.
Indeed.
Yes, that's very important. Eric did not put in the proper amount of zombies in the first issue. I told him, and I told him it's the Federal Trade Commission that has quotas, and we did not make them. We needed one more, and here's why. Then he called me names, hurtful names. I waited till you guys were sitting down. I know you find that hard to believe, but
Brian, show us on the model where Eric.
Yeah, let me point to the where the doll, where the bad man hated on me.
Oh man, well let's jump into the comments. There we go. Oh yes.
Oh,
Cindy made that for you?
Yes, Cindy made this for me. We love you, Cindy.
So cool. CKOEPP.com. I beat you to it.
Love it.
CKOEPP.com.
Good try down there, serial killer. All right. Ted Davies said Chad speaks the truth. We're moving on from that trash.
Thank you.
Creativity influences worldview and is influenced by. Wait, hold on. Yeah. Creativity influences and is influenced by my worldview. Absolutely. When we are young, we cheer for Jerry. When we get older, we understand where Tom is coming from and want to get that little bugger. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's kind of like that old line from the 90s about if you are not a liberal by the time you're like in your 20s, you have no heart. And if you're not a conservative by your 40s, you have no brain. So it's kind of like that. Tom and Jerry.
I've actually had someone tell me that exact thing before. Oh, Penn and Teller are the best. I love watching them talk about it. I do too. I
Yeah.
love
His books are
watching
amazing.
watching Penn Jillette say anything. Tell her doesn't say too much. But Ted Davies, BKM, you edited Grim 101 beautifully.
Thank you.
You
sir.
have well,
This is where I need to edit.
yeah,
You
you do.
have
You need
the
to
tone
yeah,
without being a dick. Okay, I
oh,
edited
you
without being a
edited without
dick.
being dick. Yeah, there we go.
There we
Okay.
go.
Good job.
Thank
And
you.
then while we're saying hello to Ted,
Hi, Ted.
people always want to be the next Stan Lee or the next Stephen King. I'm gonna be the first Rick Bradley. Absolutely, sir.
Yep.
Hashtag truth.
That
Yep.
honestly, that's the best thing you can do.
Yep.
Is don't try to I mean, I talk about Mike Mignola all the time.
Yeah.
But one of the things he said in an interview is essentially echoing what you said earlier, Brian, is create for yourself. You know, create the thing that you want to read. Don't try to keep up with what everybody else is doing, and don't
Yeah.
try to be anybody else. Neil Gaiman talks about that as well in his master class. You know,
Yeah.
he said, find your voice. Don't just be the next whatever. Be the first you.
Yeah.
Because no one's been you before, and that's what matters the most.
Yep.
So
I
let's
think
see.
that's I would say that's more difficult in our culture because to be the next like Stan Lee or whatever, like everyone can immediately understand that because they have a reference point for Stan Lee.
Right.
Or they want to write the next Avengers or draw the next whatever. You know, people have a good reference point for that, but the person that's doing their own off is a much harder road because there is no reference point for it. I keep saying that, but there's nothing that people can like look to and say, oh, it's like this. And so it's much harder for people to jump on board that way. You know, it's much harder to build an audience on your own thing, I think, than if you just say, you know, I love Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so I'm going to do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but they're all going to be rabbits instead of turtles. And it's going to look like that.
Which someone has done.
Yeah. Welcome
Exactly.
to the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the easy thing to do because
Yeah.
everyone knows the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And so it's much more difficult to come out with your own thing and go down that road. So
absolutely.
Yeah, but so much more rewarding too.
Yeah.
Knowing that you are treading a more original path rather than apishly following somebody. You know, in their creative journey.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. It's one thing because I know, speaking as a former artist, you emulate other artists. You know, like Mike Mignola speaks to you. You study his work to see how he does it. Gil Kane, John Byrne, whomever. But eventually, out of all this practice, out comes your style. And the same thing with writing. I mean, I didn't want to be the poor man's Warren Murphy or Don Pendleton or Harlan Ellison. I wanted to be me, and I figured out early in the game that what I had to do was promote and find my audience.
Yep. Hey, you know, this brings up a point for our third question here too, because I really struggle with collaboration, and I think for two reasons. Number one, because I do have a lot of internal pride, and so when Brian Morris, when you were saying about it really kills your ego, it really does. Like it's really good for you to collaborate with people because you do have to put yourself aside and say, no, I'm going to do this for the sake of the idea rather than the sake of my own reputation. However, on it, like with the silence, like I'm hyper protective of that idea because it's mine, and as soon as someone says, oh, you should have done this, I always think you're saying that because you're influenced by X-Men or by this or by that. I'm not doing that. I'm doing my own thing. So I don't want your input about that. So I tend to get a bit not abrasive, but just inside I'm like, no, I don't want anyone to say anything about it. I just let me do it. Let me make my mistakes. Like I'd be the first to tell you, my first issue, the lettering is horrible, but I needed to do that so then I can come back on the second one and do a much better job. And yes, collaboration could have probably eliminated that problem, but at the same time, the downside of collaboration is maybe someone's coming in with an idea that you just don't. No, I don't want to do that. And so, I struggle with collaboration because I think it's really good, but I over the last couple of years, really, I've been through the hard way through doors closing and things like that. I've really had to like learn to put my pride aside, and that's a very difficult thing to, number one, admit publicly, but also very hard to do. And collaboration is really helpful in that. So
yeah, and I would add to that, Chad. You and I are I think in the same boat with our specific comic ventures. Is Memoirs and The Silence both are very, very meaningful to both of us, very personal. Yeah. And when you have something that personal, that's kind of your baby, it's hard to share that with somebody else. Yeah. Even if you have like final say creatively, you can't truly collaborate unless you give up some creative control. Yeah. And I struggle with that too. I really do. With Memoirs, it's really tough. I'm finally going to collaborate with some people here soon on inside the Memoirs universe, but that took a while to get to a place where I could do that, where I could trust people. I think that's the biggest thing.
That's what, that's a great
trusting somebody with an idea that you have that means so much to you. If you can find the trust level that is necessary to do a collaborative effort together, then it usually runs pretty smooth. If both of you trust each other very well, then egos usually naturally get stepped aside.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And it really just depends on the project too. Like if you're creating something for yourself, collaboration, like you, Brian Rodman, like you are a good model of collaborating on your own thing, because you do have editors and you do have people like speaking into your thing. Whereas I don't really have that, although I do say with you guys, like my wife is very good for that. Like it is so painful when I'll hold up a page and I'll say, okay, tell me what you see. And I often joke about this, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but she is kind of like my lowest common denominator. In other words, she's not into comics. So when she reads it, she's reading it from someone that's not a fan. She's not influenced by what's out there.
Robin's like
she
that
could
too,
just tell me what she sees. And I always know, and we have this running joke, if she says, well, I see some horses over here. Because there was one time I drew something and she was like, is that a horse? I'm like, that is not a horse. That is not even close to a horse. That is listen, how do you even see a horse? So we had this running.
But are they skeleton horses?
That's just what I was thinking. Are they horses?
Yeah.
What's for you, Zach Hawkins?
Yeah. So.
Oh man, let's jump into to some comments here. We got quite a few to get through. Oh, we read that already, and that is great, Rick. It really is. And let's. Everyone's talking to each other. And yeah, there we go. Brian Morris edited Animal-Eye as well.
And Cindy is another graduate of Tough Love University there.
What did you say it was Captain Tough Love?
Dr. Tough Love.
Dr. Tough
Love. Because I have my Google degree in rocket surgeon. I'm a rocket surgeon. But no, I always give Cindy props, because she came to me, said, I want to do this thing. Where do I start studying? I gave her some suggestions, and then she sent me the script. I went through it, raked it over the coals, probably destroyed her will to live. Then she sent me the second draft, and she had one question where I feel she made the correct answer. She, because all of this, like acting and writing, etc., and drawing, is a series of choices on the part of the creator. Mm-hmm. Which is why if I give you guys one script, I'm going to get two different types of art from it, because of what you all bring to it. But anyway, after the second draft, I told Cindy, just do one more run through, and then send it to your editor. You don't need me anymore. And now she's writing the third issue of Animal-Eye.
It is good, folks. If you haven't picked up Animal-Eye, you really need to. The book itself is very good, but the first comic, she adapted it so well. The art's great. Just how Cindy, how you incorporated the video game aspect to it all was well done, just so good. I can't say enough good things. And Cindy goes on and says, although it's good to take feedback, you also need to know what your goal is. A crit group tried to turn every tale into a romance. I'm severely allergic to romance tales. Black.
Yeah, with you, Cindy. I'm with you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm right there with you. And Carl says, when I hear collaborating, I don't think of the editor. I'm thinking of a co-writer. No thanks. And really, I think it depends on what kind of editor you have. Would you agree, guys? I think sometimes you can just get, oh, here we go.
Hi, Luna.
Hello, Luna. She says, no, hold me like baby. I shall.
Nurse me, you.
Oh, he made it weird. But
the Fez coming
right.
out for the start of the show wasn't
exactly.
weird. I'm just maintaining.
Yeah, but some editors, they're actually a part of the collaborative process or the creative process. My editor on Memoirs of an Angel, hashtag always promote. It's also live on Kickstarter right now, issue 8. Go back it. Is Luke. Luke Bray is a great collaborator because a big part of his job as the editor is to make sure that my world building's on track. He has a PhD in world religions and spiritual realm type theology, and that's exactly obviously what Memoirs of an Angel is all about. So I bounce ideas off of him all the time before it even makes the script. And then, of course, he's made a couple changes in the script before. So that's a good one. If you're just looking for grammar and structure, then that is still collaboration on some level, but not as much. Would you agree with that, guys, or do you have anything to add?
I totally agree with that. Well, like especially in books, there are different types of editors, like copy editors who check for spelling and punctuation. There are like continuity editors that check the flow. When somebody pulls out a gun in chapter 5, was it the same make and model as the gun they put into their holster in chapter 1, sort of thing? There's sensitivity editors where you make sure you don't offend anybody. I am hiring myself as an insensitivity editor. I'll get your backside thrown off of Facebook in a heartbeat. But
Brian's an equal opportunity offender.
I am.
As we all are here at the Rising Tide Broadcast Network.
So. Y'all are my targets. But anyway, well, it's like I started working for a company called Prose Press a few weeks ago as an editor, and I told and again, Dr. Tough Love came out, and I sent a note to the person when I sent him my file, my editing file, and I said, you and I are now partners in this. Your job is to check what I have done. If you have an issue with what I've said, let's talk it out. If we can't agree, we're going to go to the publisher and their word will be final. But otherwise, my goal is to make your book the best it can while we hear your voice, not mine. So, which means, standard punctuation, spelling, etc., etc. So,
for sure. So in the creative process, for our final question, in the creative process, no matter what you're doing, be it, comics, novels, whatever, you are world building. You're starting with nothing and turning it into a tiny world for your reader or viewer to consume and expound upon. So with all that being said, how important do you think it is to know and form your own worldview in order to create a fictional world for someone else to enter into? Brian, why don't you start us off?
Thank you. That was a super question, and it's I'm going to give you the first thing off the top of my head. I think it's important to know what the world is about, because I remember writing my very first novel. It was between my freshman and sophomore years of college. And then when I finished the whole thing, I wrote one draft. I finished it, and I thought, this reads like a snotty know-it-all virgin who never left his mom's house and is probably sits in front of the TV all the time and reads comic books, which is pretty much profiling me down to a T. But I think also there are certain aspects of the world that we can that we can project onto other people. You know, like let's say we are not the only species that knows love. Love is a constant between cultures. There is love. There is union in a form of marriage or cohabitation, what have you. And even with people that you don't agree with, it's important, like we've said earlier, to understand their point of view. And it's good to look at the other side to see how they think, even if you think they are blithering idiots, and whatever they believe will be the complete downfall of civilization as you would like it to be. But it's those differences that you can explore. And that's where building a world, that's where it becomes interesting. I mean, you look at classic Krypton from Superman, okay? And it's this big, sprawling 20s sci-fi buildings and firefalls and thought monsters that that telepathically tell you their intentions before they trample you. But they have basis in fact. That like it's a fire. It's like a waterfall, but it's on fire. It's like a rhinoceros, except there's a big TV screen on top of his skull. It is the differences that make, I think, stories interesting. Like the Capulets and the Montagues.
Yeah.
You look at both sides and you don't have to agree with either one, but it's the differences between them that make for part of the drama of Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
And it's, the same way, whether we're talking about Batman and the Joker or Doc Savage versus John Sunlight or whomever, but you have to start out with having a worldview. You should have an opinion on things, which is getting harder to do given the nature of news anymore.
Well, I think your opinion can be fluctuating, right? Like we're always learning, we're always growing.
It should be.
But at the same time, you shouldn't just be so lackadaisical that you don't really have an opinion on anything. Would you agree with that?
Totally agree with that. And I've always said I've said for years, if you have a belief system that cannot tolerate inquiry, then how strong or important is that belief system? Like you guys have your, we all three have our own faith. If we could not defend why we have it and what it does to enrich our lives, then why the heck do we hold on to it? And it's kind of like science. We get the opportunity to change our minds when we get new data in. I mean, look at show business. Michael Richards, he's the funniest guy on TV, and then one day you learn he's a flaming bigot. You get to change your mind about Michael Richards. And by the same token, I don't hold a whole lot of personal views. Or at least I shouldn't say a whole lot, but I don't hold completely the same views I had, say, 30 years ago. That my mind has been changed on a lot of issues, and I have to say I'm grateful that the changes have been made more in the name of acceptance, rather than this is why these people sell their babies for whiskey sort of thing.
Right.
So it's
more compassion instead of bitterness.
More compassion. I think just being kind to people and hoping that the favor is returned. So
Chad doesn't know anything about what compassion means. Chad, what do you think about this?
I don't really have an opinion on this.
All right, cool. You
I'll
piece
talk
of
for another
trash.
20 minutes.
I liked it back when Chad wasn't saying anything and you were doing his voice. That was fun.
It was uncanny, Chad. People were going, "Holy cats! Maybe Chad is still here."
Chad's a ventriloquist. His mouth isn't even opening. This is amazing.
It's great. Yeah, you don't want to know where he was operating my jaw, though. But anyway. Trying to bring where are the rails again? I forgot.
I was just going to say from his loins.
Yes,
his loins.
So,
That's the
we were on the rails for way too long. This had to be derailed eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I've already said it in the other. What? Hello? Yeah, I'm here. I
You
see
were
you
you were
guys
frozen,
laughing.
but you're back.
It was a
Yeah,
time slip. You just
Oh,
said
I'm
back.
time slip.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, I mean, I've kind of mentioned it in the other ones, but I mean, for me, worldview is everything because,
Mhm.
I always say, like, here's my little hashtag after the I'm a failure at everything. Details make unreal things seem real. So when
Mhm.
I draw and write, I'm always thinking of how I can leverage details to make this unreal world feel very immersive.
Mhm.
And those details flow out of the worldview. So, whether a city is going to look a certain way goes back to the beliefs of the characters in that story. I mean, in our world, you look around the culture, and something as simple as architecture is formed because of a way of life or a way of
Yeah.
viewpoint that those people have. And so it's the same when you're writing a story. If you want to immerse someone in that world, those details are important, and that's all built on the worldview that you set for those characters.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's 100% important.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think, I think it's good to not only, have your own worldview and know why you die on the hills you die on, but also why others die on the hills they die on. I think that's just as important. I think one of the worst things we can do is represent another worldview incorrectly. Um, I can't tell you how many times, I've in different theological circles when I hold a belief that, in within under the umbrella of Christianity, that another person disagrees with this, minor issue, and they try to explain the belief that I believe to be true that they disagree with, and they say it incorrectly. That is, if that infuriates me. But think about it on a grander scale. I mean, something that's more close-fisted differences. Um, if you represent someone poorly, or if you always represent one party as the villain or one party as, you're showing really you're showing a sign of ignorance in your creativity and in your storytelling. And I think that's why it's always good to, if you're going to walk a mile in a character's shoes that is nothing like you, find someone that you can talk to that would represent this character's worldview. Might not match it 100%, but at least, do some research, talk to people, go out, experience life, and experience different kinds of people. Meet and befriend those who are different than you. I think is probably the most important thing you could do, not only as a creator but as a human being. That will help you grow in understanding, that will help you grow in empathy, that will help you grow in just overall compassion for people that think differently than you, because it's easy, I think, to villainize, especially right now in this world. It's easy to villainize other people that you disagree with, and it's easy to categorize them. If they think this specific thing that I disagree with, well, then they've got to think these other things. And most of the time, that is not true at all. And so the way to fight that, and especially the way to fight that in your writing and in your creating videos, comics, whatever it is to really be well rounded in how you represent other worldviews that you disagree with. So,
It's true.
well, guys, I think we're a little over an hour and a half. I think that's probably it's probably good for the first episode. What do you think?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a great conversation.
It was great. Brian, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you,
Before we
guys.
close it up, anybody have any closing thoughts at all? Other than Chad's a failure at everything.
Failure is how you learn. People keep.
That's
failing.
right. See, so I'm a
Yeah.
lot smarter than everyone because I've failed.
Yeah, that's why I'm
Okay.
such a genius.
Just keep telling yourself that, buddy. Brian, why don't you tell everybody once more where we can find you and what you're good for here?
Well, that last part, we're not real clear on that one, but we're still learning every day. So anyway, I'm Brian K. Morris, and you can find me at risingtide.pub, newly redesigned. You can also sign up for my free monthly newsletter there and check out our own broadcasts on the Rising Tide Broadcast Network. We do never mind. Furthermore, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. It's an interactive conversation show where I drink too much coffee, my bladder explodes, and Facebook drops me and makes the show go about 30% longer than it should have. But anyway, we also have a great show on Thursday nights I'm very proud of called Comic Book Spectrum with our,
Whoop, whoop.
with our very own Brian Rodman, who is brilliant, along with the gold standard Clyde Hall and Eric S. Pornsack Hawkins, the Eric Hawkins. But no, it's a lot of fun. We review the latest comic releases and talk about what's going on in the industry, all with a sense of fun. And let's see what else. I'm also on Amazon. I'm on Facebook, although we'll see how long that lasts. But mostly I'm on YouTube because they're far kinder to me there. There, I'm just a speck. An insignificant thing, but I'm sure that the algorithms are targeting me now that I'm complaining about yesterday. But anyway, first and foremost, I want to reiterate how proud I am that the Dastardly Dingoes are part of the Rising Tide Broadcast Network, and I want to thank you guys for having me on the show. It has been, as it has been in the past, a total delight, and I'm looking forward to watching this show grow and become even more amazing as the weeks unfold. Thank you so much, guys.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for being here with us as we kick off our inaugural presence in the Rising Tide Broadcast Network. It's great to be here. And Jeremy will be with us next week as we interview the one and only, the Eric S. Pornsack Hawkins. We will be diving deep and asking very personal questions that make him uncomfortable in his seat. So stay tuned. It'll be same bat time, same bat channel next week, and definitely tune in to Nevermind the Furthermore tomorrow morning. I'm Brian, and that's Chad. Don't worry about him. And thank you all for tuning into the Dastardly Dingoes podcast. Remember to hit like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Hit that bell to get notified when we have a new episode. And as always, have fun, be safe, and go out into the darkness and light it up with your creativity, my wonderful, wonderful Nevermorians. See you next time, everybody. Bye.